Alright, this is it. This is the first of 3 in-depth reviews about Chinese handmade shoes. I'll get into all that. The ordering experience, the sizing, the fit, the quality of the materials, the finishing, the execution, and just the overall price to value proposition that this shoemaker really brings to the table. I'll do the same for the other shoemakers as well. That'll come next, and then after those 3, I'll kind of collate all that information to a final side-by-side comparison. Try to articulate what it is that each of these shoemakers is able to bring to the table. Before I get into Helen Shoemaker, or Blazing Wonders, as I may go back and forth calling it, we also have a pair from the Marvel range from Acme Shoemaker, and then we have 2 pairs from Yarn Shoemaker, courtesy of Artisan London. And we've got a Balmoral boot. One last final disclosure or just reminder about what this whole series or compilation of videos is really about. With this up and coming market, there's a lot of buzz about this. You know, there are some folks within the community that are all about it. They can't wait to really experience all the different shoemakers. And then there are others that completely write it off. I'm not really here to defend one or the other. How many opportunities do you get to see these side by side to really see how the break-in goes, how the overall fit, all of that kind of stuff? It's really just to provide that context. Now, Blazing Wonders is a handmade shoe factory run by Helen Shoemaker. They have really been in this shoemaking industry for, I think it was close to a decade. They really focused on a much higher end, fully handmade men's dress shoe, probably over the last 3 or 4 years. The shoe that we're looking at today, this is their fully handmade range. So that's a hand-stitched outsole, you know, the blind molded waist, kind of their highest level of finishing that you would expect to see from a fully handmade shoe. We'll take a look at those details up close a little later on in the video, but let's just kind of go over the spec sheet for what it is that I ordered here. I will caveat and just share this disclosure outright. It'll be the same for all of them. These shoes were given to me in exchange for being able to kind of give them this platform and compare them side by side. I did not pay for these. The shoemakers did not get a preview of what I'm going to say or what I'm not going to say or when I'm going to say it. This is 100% my personal opinion. This is the sweeping double monk strap in a black box calf from the Weinheimer Tannery on the BW 16008 last. I got the silver plated buckles, dark brown lining, a fiddleback bottom finishing, a Vibram half sole, metal toe plate, and a pitched, ever so slightly, a pitched heel. I ordered this shoe on September 22nd of 2022. We had great communication between Helen and myself from that time until they were delivered. And I'll caveat the fact that, you know, with COVID and all those other situations going on locally to the workshop, they were closed for a time, so there may have been a few delays, but ultimately they were finished the first week of December, and they got here on December 17th, 2022. So just about 3 months. And then the shoe trees followed after that in the beginning of January, the first week of January. If we look at the ordering experience with Helen and with Blazing Wonders, they have an extensive catalog of different styles, lasts, patterns, leathers, and you can choose between those 2 levels of finishing. I think it's great that they offer that. The regular line of shoes that they offer comes in right around, I think it's 3,000 local currency or Chinese yen, if I'm not mistaken. Right around $800 to $950, including shipping and shoe trees if you order those. Let's talk about fit and sizing and just the overall feel of the shoe as you're wearing it. So this was based off of my made to measure foot tracings and sizing that I've used for all my other remote bespoke or remote made to measure shoes. I think this was built off of a UK 8. That was kind of the starting point. That's kind of par for the course for when I'm getting either an adjusted last or made to measure. Looking at the shoe, you can see that it has a very nice pitch on the heel. Not the heel stack, but the actual heel itself. It looks like it's really going to grasp your heel very well. It's got a nice shape built into the arch, and you can feel that there's real leather heel stiffeners throughout, extending into the arch for that support. You can definitely feel that when you're wearing the shoe. I'd say it may be a touch too large in the height of the vamp and of the toe box. These are the same sizing and same measurements that I've used with other shoemakers. and some have been a little bit large in other areas, some have been a little snug in areas. So, you know, it's hard to pinpoint it. That's one of the risks when you do a remote made to measure or remote custom last, is just that it's very hard to really like pinpoint every single fit aspect of the shoe. It doesn't prevent or impede my ability to like wear the shoe and for it to be comfortable. There's still a very snug fit throughout the instep around the top of my heel, and there's not an excessive amount of volume in the vamp or in the toe box. I think it's merely just some of these finer details, especially as you're transitioning from the vamp into the toe box. Like, that is just a shape that's very hard. There's going to be a margin of error there, and I think this is perfectly acceptable within that margin of error. Let's get into just like the quality of the materials, the quality of the overall construction, and that type of construction. Fully hand welded, hand stitched outsole, a blind welded waist, fully hand stacked leather heel. These are Lulu toe plates, Vibram topsole. The buckles on the Monk strap are attached using elastic on the buckle. That's a detail I appreciate. It just makes it much easier to actually get a really proper secure fit. When we look at the outsole stitching here, it's very finely done. You can see that the fudge detail is very much in unison with the actual outsole stitching, and when you kind of follow that all the way around the shoe, you're going to see that it stops right at the beginning of the transition to the waist, and you're not going to see it kind of start back up at all throughout the rest of the shoe. You will see slight little like hints or bumps of the welting that happens at the waist, but when you look at it from a silhouette or from afar, it's 100% a blind welded waist. If we look at the materials, this is Weinheimer black box calf, which the more recent, the more contemporary version is industry standard for black box calf. This is still very good. Like, if you look at the creasing in this, you can tell it's got a very tight grain structure. The tannage, this is definitely a chrome tan leather. You can tell that just by like the overall finish. This has a very high gloss finish throughout the entire leather. Not a good or a bad thing, that's just the characteristic of this leather. I will notice like the creasing is very fine, as I was getting at earlier. You have a very nice like horizontal, like perpendicular, like double crease right where your foot flexes. That both you know, speaks to how well the fit is, but also talks about how fine and how much like structure there is in the leather, because as you flex the leather, it's kind of got enough structure to it to maintain those flex points, and it's not just going to kind of ripple in any and all directions. When we get into the overall like details and the quality of the execution, it's pretty hard for me to find fault with many things, if any, when we look at this shoe as a whole. I want to take the shoe tree out. We'll look at that in a second here. But just going through the overall shoe, you got a half sock liner or a heel pad. You can see the full leather insole, and you can kind of see those bumps going around, indicating it is in fact a hand welded shoe. I know it's kind of crazy that like people try and confirm it. No one cuts open their Gaziano and Girling to make sure that it's Goodyear welded, but everybody wants to question and check if some of these makers are actually hand welding it. Whatever. The overall details are very fine. It's not sloppy. All the stitches are very finely executed. For what this is, all of those details about the stitching, the buckles, the lines of the shoe, it all kind of like disappears into this very clean silhouette, and that's kind of what you want, or at least what I would want in this style. So I think it was done very well. I called this out, or I mentioned it earlier, but just like the actual beveling and the finishing around the blind waist is definitely something that could use a little more refinement. It's not bad by any means, but if you compare it to other blind welded waist, you'll notice there's just a little bit of an inconsistency in the thickness, and there's about like a little bit of a wave that's going on, and those stitches, if you kind of really get into it looking with a bright light, you will be able to see the stitches that welded the waist, but the overall like shape and silhouette I think are very well done. If I could really like nitpick this, the transition from the facing here to the vamp to the toe box is like, that transition is usually what separates some of the upper echelon of shoemakers and some that are like right below it. And I would say this is not quite at that upper echelon. There's just a bit of a transition here that's kind of linear and then down, as opposed to having a bit more like anatomical shape built into that. I'm being very nitpicky at this point. This is, my personal taste is the height of the heel. I'll cut to another angle to kind of show you that, but personally I think the heel is just a touch too tall. It's an aesthetic preference of mine that the heel would be set a little bit lower. Let's talk about the shoe trees real quick. So these are some of the most like solid shoe trees I've ever handled. They were so extremely tight when I got them that I had to take them apart to get them out. And Helen acknowledged this herself, which was like, when they order these bespoke shoe trees, hinged shoe trees, and they don't have the shoes, and it's better that they be a little bit snug than be too loose and kind of lose all purpose. And I agree with that. This like high plastic gloss like finish that's sprayed over the wood, it makes it stickier so that it grabs onto that like leather lining, and it's like just impossible to get out. That said, maybe like an hour of my time, sanded it off, smoothed it out, put the hinges back on, and now they're good to go. Taking a step back, looking at this from a price to value proposition, this definitely punches a bit above its weight class. Looking around like the $1,000 price point, you're getting a fully handmade shoe with kind of the industry standard materials, very well executed construction throughout the entire shoe. And obviously the fit is always like a subjective thing, but overall I think she delivered a fantastic shoe, and I really do enjoy wearing these. Let me know if you have any questions about the ordering process, or if you have any input about your own experience with Blazing Wonders and Helen Shoemaker. I really couldn't kind of speak more highly of my own experience, and really excited to see how these match up with Acme and with your own Shoemaker. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.